That was a lot of fun doing the last 10.
Well, I'm glad you're finding this fun now.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I mean, the work to get it all set up was a lot of work. But this is fun talking about all these games, and now we're going to have to play them all again.
Yeah, they're games. We need to keep playing them.
That is true.
Most of these are not one-time only games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most of them.
I would say almost all of them. There wouldn't be on this list. So anyways, we're going to get to our top 50 games of all time countdown. Games 40 to 31 next, right after this. Welcome to WiscoDice. Hey, you folks, I am your host, Conesy with Most, and I am joined today by...
Hey, I'm Suzanne.
And today we're going to be breaking down our top 50 games of all time, actually games 40 through 31, and we're going to roll into that list next. But first, what should folks do?
Oh, you should definitely smash that like button because you know you're going to love this list. And also subscribe if you haven't already.
Do it now. Don't wait till the end of this video. Game number 40. All right, game number 40 is going to be a game that I have grown to love, one of my favorite time traveling games of all, and that is Legacy Gears of Time from Floodgate Games. In this game, you're going back in the past to help establish technologies, and those technologies will then have things that need to exist in the past in order for those technologies to actually be able to be invented. So there's dependencies, and the goal is to make sure that your technologies are the ones that are being developed as soon as possible in history so that society can come to full enlightenment in a better present than currently what you're currently at. So it's a real interesting game of time travel and managing that while still at the same time making sure that somebody like Suzanne doesn't go back in time and invent technology out from underneath you that you were trying to make sure got invented in the past.
All right, yeah, that is. I've only played that game once, so it's not on my list, but...
No, it was one of my. I remember when a friend of mine got that at Gen Con, and he was super excited. We played it a bunch, and then next year I had to get it. So, and it's gotten played, and other people have bought it. It's definitely a game that's had popularity. So, what do you have for your game number 40?
Well, so speaking of Gen Con, this is a game that I saw at Gen Con in 2024, but started playing it on VGA. It's Harmonies by Blood Games. I ended up getting it. I enjoyed it so much online that we got it. We played the physical copy a few times. It's been a hit with our gaming group and a lot of our friends. It's an abstract game where you are building different components in this world that you have. It might be trees or bushes or rivers, fields, buildings, and they're just all represented by round colored wooden discs, and you have patterns that you need to match, and you score points based on how well and how frequently you match those patterns. So it's a nice kind of relaxing abstract game to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that horribly complex to learn, but it's definitely a challenging game, I think, to play, and I'm looking forward to playing it again. I just haven't gotten a chance to play it enough.
Yep.
And I haven't really played it online at all, so...
Well, to change that. But anyway, that's Harmonies by Blood Games.
Game number 39. All right, for game number 39, I have... a game that you introduced me to, speaking of Gen Con. This is apparently the Gen Con countdown also of games we got at Gen Con. So this game, it was your very first Gen Con. You were like, you have to check out this game. Yep. So I checked this game out. It is the Artemis Project from publisher Grand Gamers Guild. That is the U.S. distributor for it, or U.S. publisher anyways. So in Artemis Project, you have dice that you're going to place. These are your workers, and they have the different values. And you're going to collect 2 core resources, minerals, and energy. And those are going to then be used to help pay for structures, make sure your workers stay warm, make sure that you're able to do expeditions, etc. So you're placing workers. And the thing I really like about this is that, like, if I want minerals, I can place, like, say, a dice that has 2 pips on it. Well, if somebody comes along and places a dice with 1 pip, they actually bump my 2 further to the right. And so then when we go to collect minerals, the person who is furthest to the left gets minerals first on however many number of pips are on their dice, and then so on until whatever. So it can end up with, like, if you placed a 5 going, ooh, I'm going to get a lot of minerals, all of a sudden you get bumped. You might not get any, or you get only a couple. Of course, there's always a pretty good...
There's a consolation prize track. It's called something else, but I call it the consolation prize to remember that I get something. So it's definitely a fun one to play, and it has dice as workers in there, which is a favorite of someone on this show.
I mean, who doesn't love dice? It's in the name.
Right.
What's your 39?
Mine is Beyond the Sun. This is published by Rio Grande Games, so it's a space-themed game, so therefore, I just am naturally drawn to it. And as you're going through it, you are placing your player components to activate different kind of, technologies in a way, or discoveries, and then discover more as you go through of higher and higher technologies, and you do compete for locations with the other players, and if someone else discovers something, you don't automatically get it. You also have to kind of work your way up to it too, so there's there's a little bit of this race to get out ahead, so you can kind of pick what's going to be discovered next, and it's a space themed game. It's just a nice, I don't know, it makes my brain hurt a little bit, but I like that.
Well, in this, you haven't played a lot of 4X space games like Eclipse or Twilight Imperium yet, but this really takes on the idea of the tech track kind of capability that is so often in those styles of games, and just really focuses on that experience. And then, yes, sure, there's a map, there's like a space map of planets and whatever, and you can fly your ships around and whatever on it, but really the focus of the game is that tech track. So if you love tech tracks in those types of games, this is the game you really want to check out.
Yep. So that was Beyond the Sun, published by Rio Grande Games.
Game number 38. For game number 38, it is going to be very robotic with Raising Robots from Navu Games. So Raising Robots is a game you backed as a Kickstarter. I didn't have any interest in this thing when you first backed it, or when it showed up. I never heard of it or anything like that. You had done a bunch of research though on it, and I'm glad you backed it, because this game is so much fun. You're just constantly engine building throughout the entire game.
So much is simultaneous.
And then it's simultaneous, like 8 rounds, but it's very simultaneous play. Plays very well at the larger full player counts, because once you've taught people basically and stepped through the first turn or two and walked everybody through activations, like everybody can just do their activations, and you don't really need to pay attention to things. Whether you're adding extra robots to your tableau, or you're running your certain robot engines to be able to gather a bunch of resources to increase your resources or points or whatever it is that you're doing with them. It is a lot of fun. I love trying to mind bend my way through building up the best collection of robots out of all these cards that you're basically acquiring, and getting it set up so that my engine hums really good and scores a bunch of points.
Yeah, and it has a unique way of deciding which sections of all the boards are going to activate each round based on cards that you play and energy cubes that you have and everything. So, so that one, Raising Robots, is really fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
The funny thing is, my number 38 is a robot game also, but it is not Raising Robots. It is Robo Rally, published by Avalon Hill, and this one I love for the chaos.
It is full of chaos.
This one is more fun the more chaotic it is. You have your robot that's kind of going through this maze, or looking, having these goals on this playing field in front of you, and you are programming what its actions are going to be, while others are programming their robot's actions, and then when you're activating them, the board state may have changed, but you can't change the programming, and there may be holes that you fall in, robots you run into, you may get twisted around. It's just a lot of chaos. You. Yep. So it's just a lot of fun.
I would say one big thing with Robo Rally is that you have to be careful not to play I think the larger maps, unless you're like really into this game, like they can get kind of dull in a hurry, or you can get really into this like mode of frustration trying to get to target goals on the track if you start getting in the larger maps and stuff. So respect the game. I respect the game for what it is. It's mostly about the chaos and silliness, and I love that part. I love that programming aspect. But if you go too far sideways or it gets a little too frustrating, and your like programming deck is full of junk like spam and stuff like that, it can be a real drag too.
Right. Yep. So that's Robo Rally, published by Evelyn Hill.
Game number 37. Game number 37, we're going to take a step back from the future and go into the past for Trajan. This is from Eminent Spiel. I think they were the original publishers. Classic Euro game, classic Steffenfeld. This game really takes like the idea of the old classic Mancala mechanism for action selection to be able to do various actions. And this is a game that you just recently got to play for the first time, and we talked about in our January New to Us Games segment. But it's such a neat little game that I'm really glad that so many people in our player group are getting reintroduced to this one, because it's a classic, really good game that I actually kind of forgot how much fun it was when we played it just recently. So
had it sitting for so long on the shelf and finally got to play it.
Well, we got our copy used, and
I know, but
I had played it previously on somebody else's copy. So
yeah. So anyway, my number 37 is also a game set back in time. It is Teotihuacan, City of the Gods, published by Board and Dice. And in this one, you have dice as workers, and you are moving them around the board to kind of build up the pyramid and also build up some other tracks that are also on there. And there's 3 scoring phases. They call them eclipses that occur, so points can kind of accumulate very quickly.
Yeah, it's a point salad.
It is until like the end. Then it's kind of like, some people have their, so there's a little bit of an engine that you can develop with, but it's more if you get your dice positioned in the right spots, so that you can capitalize on that, which is something that I struggle with, but I still enjoy this game. And it's one that you introduced me to, because I know you really enjoy it.
Yeah, well, this is that dice worker placement kind of game. You're going around in a circle, kind of almost rondelish style a little bit.
Yep.
I love the fact that you're building, like the tiles for building the temple are really cool. But the key to this game is definitely about trying to maximize efficiency on getting resources and then being in the right space, right ability to have the right workers in the right spots to be able to then spend those resources to maximum effect. So all sorts of great Euro mechanisms in it.
Right. So that one is Teotihuacan, City of the Gods.
Game number 36. All right, it's time to get a little crotchety with some old men and ladies in little fishing village. We're going to be talking about Nussfjord from Lookout Games, and this is a classic Uwe Rosenberg game that we only just really got introduced to last year, and it just keeps getting back to the table, and I've realized how much I really like this game. So I think you might even like it better. So.
I love, like, this game. I just had this whole story in my head as we were playing it the first time.
So I'm gonna not talk too much about it and let you talk about it later, because I'm sure this one will come up on a future one of these somewhere down the road as we continue talking.
Yeah. My number 36 is Sentinel of the Multiverse, and I specifically call it the Definitive Edition because we play both of them.
Definitive Edition.
It is. It is published by Greater Than Games, and there are some slight but significant variations between this and the original, like with the rules and how it plays a little bit. Both of them are great. I will play either one of them. But in this one, you have a deck of cards for your hero that you are, and then you have a villain and a location and different things that happen as you go through the game. This one, it has its own characters for these comic book heroes. So it's not, you'll kind of recognize some of them, like they'll be a little familiar to you, but they will not be ones that are like Marvel or DC ones. But they will, so you get an idea and the feel of it without having to deal with the IP. I like games that have these cards that you are playing in front of you and you get to cooperate.
Yeah.
Win together, lose together, play it solo. I mean, it works out real well.
You had Marvel Champions on your list before, and I also agree. I like this one better than I like Marvel Champions.
Oh, yeah.
It just feels like you're more immersed into the game. Like, even though I have less like I don't know who the superhero characters are as much, the gameplay just feels a little more narrative and a little more immersive. There is still some, even in the definitive edition, some points where you're like, how is that supposed to work rules-wise? Like, Marvel Champions has a stronger rule set.
Yeah.
With better clarifications on things quite a bit of time. But it's fine. Usually, like, if we're playing it, it's fine. You just if you can't figure out if it's clear, you just rule it in the favor of the game, rule it in favor of the villain. It'll be fine. When in doubt, go with giving the advantage to the game, and it plays fine. Like it, yeah. I really enjoy this one. I love to play it. There is a comic book series that they've kind of done around it, a role playing game around this universe now. So there is a bunch of stuff like that now for Sentinels.
Yep. So it's a really fun game.
Game number 35. All right, game number 35. We're gonna go back to space, far, far, in classic 4X space building strategy game with Eclipse, New Dawn for the Galaxy, from Ludapillet.fl. I'm gonna butcher that one. Sorry, publisher. But Eclipse, this is a classic 4X game where you're discovering space tiles and adding them to the map as you explore out the game. You are developing technology tracks for your faction. Everybody has an asymmetric faction to start the game. You have combat. So you're exploiting, you're exploring, you're fighting, you're tech tracking. You're doing all of these things, all of the things. It's a lot of fun. The only thing is that it takes a long time, and you generally want 5 or 6 players when you want to play it. Otherwise, it'd probably be up further in our list because I think this is the one.
I never played it.
No, we played it once as a 2-player. It just doesn't. You don't get the full feel for it until you get 4 or 5 people also at the table with it. So,
gotcha.
But that is Eclipse, New Dawn for the Galaxy. How about your 35?
My 35 is staying right here on Earth. It is the Castles of Burgundy Special Edition. And for this, I am saying Special Edition because that is the one that I have played the physical copy of. We backed it when Awakened Realms did the revival of it. And you have all the nice acrylic tiles and stuff. So, and in this one, it's a very classic game. You roll your dice. Based on your dice, it tells you which sections you can either build a tile on your map or take a tile from a depot or sell goods that you have. So a lot of different things you can do with the dice depending on what you roll, and you just want to get the most points. I think the most complicated part of this game when you're playing it, if you are not playing it online, is just making sure you are collecting all your points that you score. There's a lot of different maps you can use, and I think everyone I've played it with has definitely enjoyed it. So,
yeah, I mean, I enjoy this one. I am definitely on record as being a person who was very excited to be able to back and get a copy of this classic game with a nice blinged out new look. But that was the first time that I played it, and I was a little let down with it. But I also don't have that nostalgia attachment or prior play of this game. It's a game that I would love to play again, and I just haven't had enough opportunities to play it to really dig into it enough to maybe get it a little bit further on my list and like it a little bit more.
And I think your play of it was a 2-player game for the first time, and this game is one that I feel plays fine at 2 players, but it does much better at 3 or 4. It scales, but it doesn't scale as well when it goes down. So anyway, my number 35 was Castles of Burgundy, published Awaken Realms.
Game number 34. For game number 34, I have more castles on the menu with game Era Medieval Age from Eggert Spiel. This game is really an expensive roll and write. It really is, but that is what makes it awesome. And why is that awesome? Because you have 3D physical tiles that look like castle walls, look like medieval buildings that you're putting onto your player board. And just like you would draw a polyomino if you were playing, like, say, a roll and write, and then you're rolling dice, and just based on those dice, you reveal them, and and then you're able to maybe build things or attack other players to exploit them, or maybe there's disease or fires or whatever disasters might happen as you're playing through the game. You're collecting resources. The biggest knock on it, I think, totally was for us was really when I got the game, because I got original printing, was the fact that the player boards were very yellow and it was hard to read them. But since I started painting them, and I've got 2.5 of those player boards painted, yay!
So 2.5 people can play it.
I don't know, it's the bottom half or the top half for the other for that half a person, but hey,
left to right.
Oh, left and right, that's novel. Anyways, it is a lot of fun, and I love the fact that by the time you're done playing this game, no matter what, you have this like really cool looking board with a interesting castle, and maybe you get your walls complete, maybe you don't, so you have a nice inner castle and outer castle, or you could have a bunch of ravaged lands on your board because things just went sideways. So it's a really good game. I love it. That's Era Medieval Age from Eggert Spiel.
All right, so my number 34 is one that I guess I wouldn't have realized I enjoyed it this much if it hadn't been for doing the ranking on Pub Meeple that we did. Because I was like, every time I was presented between this game or that game, which do I want to play? I was like, this one, of course. So my number 34 is Dice Miner, that is published by Atlas Games, and this is one that a couple Gen Cons ago,
it's the COVID Gen Con,
we walked up to a booth, and there was someone demoing a game where they were rolling dice and saying cheers and rolling dice at other people, and it had this mountain that they were picking from, and it just kind of caught our attention. And we ended up buying one of their last copies there, and it's a lot of fun. It's got this process where you are drafting dice. Basically, you're drafting your pool of dice, and each round your pool is getting larger and larger because you keep adding to it. But it's whatever's on the top of the mountain. So it's like you are mining this mountain to get down there, and some dice are good, like they will help you. Some will be negative points, but you can counteract those with certain things. And every round, whatever dice you have in your pool, you are rolling. And that's like your starting pool of dice for the next round before you start drafting.
Yeah, so each round scores more points too. Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
And I've played this at all player counts. I've played it solo several times, and it's a great game to play solo. If you're looking for one that's solo to 4 players, I think it's 4 is the max on here.
I don't know.
4 or 5. It's just a lot of fun, this game.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. When that same Gen Con, when we got it, because Open Gaming was right in the main ICC Convention Center too, we must have got this game played a dozen times before we left Gen Con.
Because everyone wanted to play it, and they had sold out of all their copies. So, but anyway, that's Dice Miner, published by Atlas Games.
Game number 33. For game number 33, to be like the apocalypse in Thunder Road Vendetta from Restoration Games. Because, after all, you need to gas up your car that's maybe still operational or your team of cars and take them to the racing track to see what kind of chaos and disaster can happen. And I don't care if I win, I don't care if I lose. I just want to ram my cars into things, have my helicopter and my cars in position to shoot things, and see if I can cause chaos when I'm playing this game.
Yep, this game reminds me of those old Hot Wheels crash-ups that you would roll into other cars and they would break, and that was kind of the fun part of it. So this one, you want to hit those unknown spots and see if you're going to slide into someone else. Because most of the time, you're not going to wreck your car. You're going to hit someone else and wreck their car.
Or maybe you do wreck your car because you hit their car and then you bounce into the obstacle that wrecks your car too. Who cares? Hey, we'll just rack it up and play it again.
Exactly. So.
And for a game that has elimination, if you're eliminated, where all of your cars are eliminated, you just that signals the end of the turn, and so you just watch and cheer on. Yeah, you cheer on destruction.
Yeah.
The end of that round, the game's over. Somebody wins. Woohoo! Okay, let's rack it up and play again.
Yep. Yeah. So that's a great game. Mine is a lot calmer than that one.
A lot calmer?
A lot calmer. Mine's a 2-player only game, too, where you are working against your opponent, but also with your opponent a bit. And Beer and Bread, that is published by Deep Print Games. So in this game, you have some cards and some resources in the fields between you when you are opposing farms, and you are trying to make beer and bread and sell it. And if you have a surplus of resources, then you just offer it to your neighbor to help them out. And I don't know, it's one of these 2-player games that it feels like a very complete game. I don't feel like it's too short or too long or too difficult to set up. And our games are usually pretty close. I mean, you're the only person I've ever played it against, so.
I mean, it's one of the things that we talked about in our 2-player games podcast. Well, we talked about the rank, but we talked on the podcast for our Valentine's Day special, where some of our favorite games to play with our significant others, and one of the things that came out was the fact that these 2-player games were so easy to set up was one of the reasons that everybody seemed to have was in their selection criteria for one of their favorite games. And this is no exception, right? But you have plenty of a crunchy Euro, you have multi-use cards, you have all sorts of really cool things. I really like playing this one too.
Oh yeah.
And is, the more we're talking about it, the more I'm like, hey, we should probably just stop recording and go check it out. But
or maybe not. I don't think they would appreciate us leaving them hanging for the our last 2 games in this category.
Game number 32. So for game number 32, we're going to build our civilizations in this card drafting game, basically tableau builder, and that is Through the Ages, a new story of civilization from CGE. So this is one of the classic civilization builder games, and one that at this point is pretty much relegated for my play on Board Game Arena. We played it a couple of times when we first got it. I know you had some concerns about being, I'm not competitive against you, but yeah,
I'm not.
There is definitely a factor of getting to recognize what cards are in the deck and the different ages, and going, okay, how do I want to maybe combo those up? I am not the greatest at it either, to be honest, even though I've played it a bunch of times. But there's definitely a learning curve and improving perspective. But I love though it does feel very much like you're building up your civilization, and that it's evolving over time.
It's a good game. I enjoy the game itself. I just don't enjoy that I'm so far behind the entire game of trying to struggle to keep up.
That there are games I've played online that are also very much that way, and I know what I'm doing. So, and there is certainly that aspect. Like any civilization game, there is if one player gets behind, especially in a 3 or 4 player game, your late game. If you're playing with aggressive players, be ready to be the one that gets beat down over and over. And it's just I just needed a little bit more to be able to get my engine going. Sorry.
Right. Yep. But anyway, mine is very different than that. My
Very
number 32.
different.
Yep. Mine is Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Is it about
published
ducks?
by CMYK. No, it is about quacks, like doctors, magicians. They create potions in their cauldrons. And it's a push your luck game where then, based on how far around you're pulling out the potions without having your
Pot explode.
You're pulling out the ingredients without having your pot explode. It tells you how many points you're going to get for that round, and also how much money you're going to have to purchase new ingredients. And there is a little bit, hey, if I purchase more of these, if I pull them out, when I pull them out, they're going to allow me to move ahead further, or double the cost for this, or double my points, different things that they'll do. And I usually am not a huge fan of push your luck games. I'm not a betting type of person, but this one is just
really
fun.
True betting in this game, but there is that push the luck
like
perspective that is interesting, and we have we haven't upgraded any of our components, but we have put the little coin holders on all of the little ingredient tokens because they do wear. Yeah, they do wear pretty good, but yeah, this game's a lot of fun and really enjoyable. And even though we have all of the expansions, I am very happy just to play the base game and be done. I think the only thing is that the expansions just make it a little bit easier to score points.
They do. And, I think if you just want a little, I think if you're playing this, if this is like the main game that you're playing, like with a group or with your family or whatever, that having that little bit of variability, adding it in every now and then, just to make it so, hey, someone has figured out how to win with this combination of spells, it just kind of, or ingredients, it just kind of helps. But anyway, that's Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Game number 31. Hey, do you got some spice?
What game are you talking about now?
Well, we're going to be back in space, and I could really use some spice. Because I need to get my ships to move around and stuff. So that game is Dune Imperium from the Direwolf. And in Dune Imperium, you're doing exactly what the books are. You're building your little deck. You're investing in different factions. You're having battles. You're getting spice and water and all these different other resources as well, so that you can try to spend them to do various things as well as part of your actions. But it is a really interesting game. Has a lot of similarities from a cards mechanic to game Lost Ruins of Arnak, but it is much a different game. And for me, the first time I played this game, I had kind of written it off because it was an IP game for an IP that I didn't really have a lot of interest in at the time. But I got a chance to play it. I was at a friend's house, and
You like this game?
I was just really blown away with the game and how much fun I had, and I didn't have to know anything about the IP. Since then, I've watched the movies, I've listened to the audiobooks, I've obviously gotten into it a lot more, and I enjoy the IP now behind it, so it just adds a little bit more for it. But unlike a lot of games that have an IP that they're based on, you don't need to know the IP to enjoy this game a ton, which is awesome.
Yep, I really like the IP. I like this game well enough, but not as much as you. Like,
you don't
I
get
like
a chance to play it as much either.
I don't. I
reason.
probably would enjoy it more if I got to play it more and everything. But this is a lot of fun, and if you do know the IP, you can see all the little thematic bits and pieces in there, and it just immerses you a bit more into the game. Anyway, my number 31 is Dice Throne, and it is published by Dice Throne. So this was like their main game, and they have...
So you just put a pile of dice on a chair and call that your Dice Throne? Is that how you play this game?
We will...
Bad
no.
joke?
That's like... I feel right now he deserves that I make you a chair cushion out of D4s.
No, I'll be a good boy.
So anyway... Dice Throne is they're small boxes, and when you buy them, well, small boxes, not too small, but they come as like 2-packs. So 2 characters in a box that you can battle head to head with another. You can combine multiple boxes. and battle with more people, and we've played it at different player counts. You can pick one character from one box and one that you like from another box, and you're rolling dice, and based on what you roll on your turn, it's gonna, look at the card in front of you, and it's gonna tell you what type of attack or upgrade, or if you're on a defensive roll, what you can do defensively. I feel that it's kind of thematic when you read through it, and the upgrades when you look at what your character is.
Yeah, it is.
Is it an artificer? Are you some sort of witch? Are you a
pyromancer?
Starter? Yeah, pyromancer. And they do have this, like they have a Marvel dice throne, which is good. Also, I just like all the dice thrown. I like the general concept of it, and every time I've played it, it's been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, dice thrown's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that one too. It's nice. We've only really played it as a 2-player, though. No, we did play it once as a higher player
and a 4-player.
Yep, and that was with, I think, the Marvel dice thrown.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
it worked fine.
Game.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the larger player counts, and you can choose who you are attacking, so everyone could gang up on someone.
Mm-hmm.
But then that usually just lets that other person, someone else get way ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think that gets us through our next 10 games that are on this list. So now we're going to be down to, we're through our first 20 games.
Yep.
We still have 30 more to go.
Stuck with us this long? Like that, subscribe so you get notified when our next set of 10 games.
Check us out. Make sure that you ring that little bell for notifications, and we'll see you next time for our next 10 in our top 50 games of all time. Thanks so much for watching.
And don't forget to smash that like button, and also subscribe to our channel.
By the way, here's some other videos that we've done that we think you might be interested in. Till next time, keep rolling those dice.